6 months had passed since the tribunal. Nathan stood at the window of their small house and watched the twin suns of Haven's Rest sink toward the horizon. The sky turned shades of purple and gold that he still found beautiful after all this time. Haven's Rest was a joint settlement on a neutral world. Humans and Valari had built it together after the war ended, a place where both species could live side by side. It was small, only about 3,000 residents, but it was growing every year. People came here because they believed in something bigger than old hatreds thought. Nathan had chosen this place carefully. Myra needed to be around other Valari, but she also needed to be with him. Haven's Rest was the only place in the galaxy where both things were possible. The house was modest. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a living area with big windows that let in plenty of light. Nathan had decorated it with a mix of human and Valari elements. A comfortable human sofa sat next to a Valari meditation cushion. Human photographs hung on the walls beside Valari crystal art. The kitchen contained both human cooking equipment and the specialized tools needed for Valari cuisine. Myra's room was her own design. She had painted the walls herself with images of stars and ships and gardens. Above her bed hung the torn piece of fabric she had carried from the ruins, now cleaned and framed. A reminder of what she had lost and why she kept going. Nathan heard the front door open and Mira's voice calling out that she was home. He turned from the window and saw her running toward him, her school bag bouncing against her back. She was taller now, and her antennae had grown longer as Valari children's antennae did with age. She hugged him quickly and then pulled back with a troubled expression on her face. Nathan asked what was wrong. Myra dropped her bag and sat down on the human sofa. She said that something had happened at school. Another child, a Valari boy named Torin, had said something mean to her. Nathan sat beside her and asked what Torin had said. Myra's antennae flattened with remembered hurt. She said Torin had told her that Nathan was not her real father. He said that a human could never be a real father to a Valari child. He said that Mira was pretending to have a family because she did not want to admit she was an orphan. Nathan felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. He asked Mira what she had said back. Myra shrugged. She said she had not known what to say. She had just walked away. Nathan nodded. He told Myra that he was proud of her for not fighting. He told her that Torin was probably jealous or confused or repeating things he had heard from adults. He told her that the words of other people could not change what was true. Myra looked at him with her silver eyes. She asked if Nathan thought it was true. She asked if he was really her father or just pretending. Nathan felt his heart ache at the question. He had known this moment would come eventually. He had prepared for it in his mind 100 times. But now that it was here, he found that all his prepared words seemed hollow. He took Myra's small blue hand in his. He told her a story. He said that many years ago, before he ever met her, he had a daughter. Her name was Sophie. She was small and bright and full of laughter. She liked to dance in the rain and sing songs that she made up herself. She was the center of his universe. When Sophie was 4 years old, she got sick. The doctors tried everything, but nothing worked. She died in Nathan's arms on a cold winter morning. He remembered the exact moment when her breathing stopped. He remembered the silence that followed. After Sophie died, Nathan felt like part of himself had died too. He went through the motions of living, but he was empty inside. He took the job on the relief ship because he thought helping others might fill the void. It did not. Then he found Myra in the ruins of her colony. This small blue girl who grabbed his arm and would not let go. This child who said he smelled like her father. Nathan told Myra that he had not been looking for another daughter. He had not believed he could ever love another child the way he had loved Sophie. He had thought that part of his heart was closed forever, but Mira had opened it anyway. Not by replacing Sophie, but by creating new space. by teaching him that love was not a limited resource, by showing him that family could be chosen as well as given. Nathan squeezed Myra's hand. He said that Torrin was wrong. He said that being a real father had nothing to do with blood or species or biology. Being a real father meant showing up every day. It meant learning and growing and making mistakes and trying again. It meant choosing someone over and over until the choosing became as natural as breathing. He said he chose Myra every single day, and he would keep choosing her for the rest of his life. Myra was quiet for a long moment. Her antennae slowly rose back to their normal position. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft but certain. She said that her birth father used to tell her that real family was about who stayed. He said it was about who learned your ways and taught you theirs. He said it was about who made you feel safe just by being their dad. She said that Nathan did all those things. He had learned to cook her favorite Valari dishes. He had taught her human songs. He had held her through nightmares and celebrated her achievements and comforted her fears. She said that Nathan smelled like home, not because of chemistry or random chance, but because home was not a place. Home was a person, and Nathan was her person. She pressed 2 fingers to her antennae in the Valari gesture of love. Nathan returned the gesture and then pulled her into a hug. They sat together on the human sofa as the twin suns finished setting and the sky filled with stars. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the environmental systems. After a while, there was a knock at the door. Nathan opened it to find Alara standing on the porch with a basket of Valari pastries. She had moved to Haven's Rest 2 months ago to be closer to her granddaughter. She visited at least twice a week. Myra ran to greet her, and the 3 of them shared the pastries together in the warm kitchen. Alara told stories about Myra's father as a child. She described his curiosity and his stubbornness and his gentle heart. Myra listened with wide eyes, drinking in every detail. When it was time for bed, Myra hugged both Alara and Nathan. She walked to her room and stopped at the door. She looked back at them with an expression that was somehow both young and old. She said, "Thank you. Not for the pastries or the stories, but for everything. For staying. For choosing. For proving that the universe was big enough for families that did not match." Then she went to bed. Alara stayed for tea. She and Nathan sat on the porch and looked up at the unfamiliar stars. She told him that he was doing well. She told him that her son would have been proud. Nathan said he was just trying his best. He said he still made mistakes all the time. Alara smiled. She said that making mistakes was part of being a parent. The only real failure was giving up. She left an hour later, and Nathan walked through the quiet house to Myra's room. He opened the door just a crack and looked inside. She was sleeping peacefully, her antennae relaxed, her small hand resting on the framed piece of her father's fabric. Nathan thought about the long journey that had brought them here. The ruined colony, the skeptical officials, the tribunal, the months of adjustment and learning and growing together. He thought about Sophie, his first daughter, who would always live in his heart. He thought about Myra, his second daughter, who had taught him that love could grow again in even the most broken places. He thought about what it meant to be human. Not the biology or the species classification, but the deeper meaning. The capacity to care for those who were different. The ability to form bonds across impossible distances. The stubborn refusal to let tragedy have the final word. The galaxy was vast and often cruel. But sometimes, in the wreckage of disaster, he found something unexpected. Sometimes a little girl with silver eyes looked at you and saw her father. And sometimes, if you were brave enough, you became what she needed. Nathan closed the door softly and walked to his own room. Tomorrow there would be new challenges. There would be difficult conversations and cultural misunderstandings and the ordinary struggles of raising a child. But tonight, there was only peace. A human father and his Valari daughter, together in a small house on a world. Between worlds, family was not about blood or species, it was about who stayed. Nathan planned to stay for a very long time. The tribunal chamber was located in the central hub of Valari Station Orath. It was a circular room with high ceilings and walls made of translucent crystal that glowed with soft blue light. Seats rose in tiers around a central floor where those being judged would stand. Nathan stood in that central space with Mira beside him. She wore a simple dress that the refugee center had provided. He wore his cleanest uniform. Neither of them had slept well the night before. The council members took their seats above them. There were 3 Valari elders with ancient faces and slow-moving antennae. There were 2 human diplomats in formal suits. In the highest seat was the neutral arbitrator, a member of the Galactic Union species known as the Fen. She was tall and thin with gray skin and 6 eyes that blinked. Independently High Coordinator Sereth sat at the prosecution table. He had spent the past week gathering evidence and witnesses. His case was strong, and everyone in the room knew it. The arbitrator called the tribunal to order. She announced that this hearing would decide whether the human known as Nathan Cole would be granted permanent guardianship of the Valari child known as Myra. She said both sides would present their arguments. She said the council would deliberate and deliver a final verdict. Sereth stood first. He spoke for nearly an hour. He described the specific environmental needs of Valari children. He explained that they required certain light frequencies, certain air compositions, certain nutritional compounds that humans could not easily provide. He detailed the psychological importance of communal raising and the damage caused by isolation from one's culture. He called witnesses. A Valari child development expert testified that human homes lacked the sensory richness that Valari children needed for proper neural development. A cultural historian testified that Valari, raised outside their community, often suffered identity crises and depression in adulthood. A social worker testified about successful Valari adoptions and the bonding process that helped orphans heal. Each witness spoke with confidence and authority. Each one made the case that Mira belonged with her own people. Nathan listened to all of this and felt his hope shrinking with every word. He was not a scientist or an expert. He was just a medic who had stumbled into an impossible situation. What did he have to offer against all of this evidence? When Sereth finished, the arbitrator turned to Nathan and asked if he wished to present his case. Nathan stood slowly. His hands were shaking. He looked at Myra, who was watching him with trust in her silver eyes. He took a breath and began to speak. He did not have experts or studies or official certifications. He had only the truth. He told the council that he did not know everything about Valari culture. He admitted that he would probably make mistakes. He explained that he was still learning about Valari, food and Valari customs and Valari ways of showing affection. But he also told them what he did know. He knew that Mira liked to listen to slow human music before she fell asleep. He knew that she was afraid of the dark and needed a small light in her room. He knew that she loved the color green because it reminded her of the gardens on her homeworld. He knew that she talked to her dead parents every night before bed, telling them about her day. He knew that she was brave and kind and curious. He knew that she tried to help the medics on the ship, even though she did not have to. He knew that she cried when she thought no one was watching. He knew that she had chosen him, not because he was perfect, not because he was Valari, but because something in his scent told her traumatized heart that she was safe. Nathan looked directly at Sereth. He said that he understood the concerns about cultural isolation. He promised that Mira would learn about her heritage. He promised she would speak Valari and eat Valari food and know Valari stories. He said he would find teachers and tutors and community connections. He said he was not asking to replace Volari culture. He was asking for the chance to add to it. He was asking for the chance to give Myra a home where she was loved. The council members exchanged glances. Some looked moved. Others looked skeptical. The arbitrator asked if there was anything else. Nathan hesitated. Then he asked if Myra could speak. A murmur went through the chamber. It was unusual for a child to address a tribunal. But the arbitrator nodded and said the council would hear her. Myra stepped forward. She was trembling slightly, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Her common tongue had improved greatly over the past weeks. She said that she remembered her father. She remembered his voice and his hands and the way he smelled after working in the garden. She remembered that he told her stories about the universe. He told her that the universe was too big for small thinking. He told her that family was not about blood or species. It was about who stayed when everything fell apart. Her father had stayed until the end. He had hidden her and gone back into the fire to save her brother. He had not come back. Myra said she thought she would be alone forever after that. She thought she would fade like the old stories said. She thought she would follow her parents into the darkness. But then, she found Nathan. Or Nathan found her. She was not sure which way it happened. She said Nathan stayed. He did not have to stay. He did not want the responsibility. He was scared and confused and uncertain. But he stayed anyway. She said that was what her father would have done. She said that was why Nathan smelled like home. The chamber was silent when she finished. Even Sarah seemed affected by her words. The arbitrator thanked Myra and called for a recess. The council would deliberate and return with a verdict. Nathan and Myra were escorted to a waiting room. They sat together on a bench and did not speak. There was nothing left to say. They had given everything they had. An hour passed. Then, too, Nathan was beginning to lose hope when there was a knock at the door. The guard opened it, and an elderly Volari woman entered. She moved slowly with the careful steps of great age. Her skin was a deep blue, almost purple, and her antennae were long and graceful despite their years. She introduced herself as Alara. She said she was Myra's grandmother. Myra's eyes went wide. She rose from the bench and spoke rapidly in Volari. Alara answered in the same language, and tears began to flow down both their faces. Nathan watched this reunion with mixed emotions. He was happy that Myra had found family. He was terrified that this family would take her away. Alara embraced Myra for a long moment. Then she turned to Nathan and studied him carefully. Her antennae moved toward him and away, sampling his scent. She said that her son had been different from other Volari. He had believed that the old ways were too rigid. He had married a woman from another clan, despite the objections of the elders. He had taught his children that love was bigger than tradition. She said she had not always agreed with him. She said they had argued many times before he died. But she also said that he had been right about the most important things. She said that Myra's happiness mattered more than cultural purity. She said that love did not care about species. Alara looked at Nathan with ancient silver eyes. She asked him if he loved Myra. Nathan said he did. He said he did not know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, she had become his daughter in every way that mattered. Alara nodded slowly. She said that her son would have approved of him. She said she would tell the council that she supported Nathan's guardianship. Nathan felt tears in his own eyes. He asked why she would do that. He asked why she would give up her granddaughter to a human stranger. Alara smiled sadly. She said she was not giving Myra up. She said she was giving Myra a father. She said that was different. She said she was old and tired. She could not raise a child alone, but she could visit. She could teach. She could be the bridge between Myra's two worlds. She pressed 2 fingers to her antennae in blessing. Nathan returned the gesture. When the council called them back for the verdict, Alara walked in with them. She stood beside Nathan and Mira. As the arbitrator announced the decision, the council had voted to grant Nathan provisional guardianship. He would be required to ensure that Mira received regular education in Valari language and culture. He would be required to submit to periodic reviews by Valari Social Services. He would be required to allow Elara visitation rights as Mira's surviving blood relative. These terms were acceptable. Nathan pulled Mira into his arms and held her tight. She laughed and cried at the same time, her antennae dancing with joy. Sareth left the chamber without speaking. His face was unreadable, but his posture spoke of defeat. Elara watched them with a gentle expression. She said there was much work ahead. She said the path would not be easy, but for now, there was only this moment. A human father, a Valari daughter, a grandmother who chose love over tradition. Family was not about blood or species. It was about who stayed. Valari Station Araneth hung in space like a great silver wheel. It was one of the largest refugee processing centers in the quadrant, home to thousands of displaced Valari from dozens of destroyed colonies. The Horizon's Edge docked at Port 17, and the survivors prepared to disembark. Nathan helped Mira pack her few belongings into a small bag. She had collected things during the journey. A smooth stone from the ship's garden, a ribbon from one of the medics, a data chip containing human songs that Nathan had copied for her. These were her treasures now. Mira was quiet as they walked toward the docking ramp. Her antennae were flat against her head, a sign of anxiety. She kept glancing up at Nathan, as if making sure he was still there. Nathan squeezed her hand and told her it would be okay. He did not know if that was true. The Valari officials were waiting at the dock. There were 6 of them, dressed in the formal robes of the Refugee Administration. Their leader was a tall male with dark blue skin and stern silver eyes. He introduced himself as High Coordinator Sareth. Sareth examined the list of survivors and checked each one as they passed. When he reached Mira, he stopped. He looked at her small hand wrapped around Nathan's fingers. He looked at Nathan's human face. His antennae stiffened. He asked why this child was attached to the human. Captain Morrison stepped forward and began to explain the situation. She talked about the rescue and the unexpected bond in the medical findings. Sareth listened without expression. When the captain finished, Sareth shook his head. He said the child would be taken to the orphan processing center immediately. He said there are proper Valari families waiting to adopt survivors. He said a human had no place in Valari child rearing. Mira understood enough of the words to know what was happening. Her grip on Nathan's hand tightened painfully. Her antennae began to tremble. Nathan told Sareth that Mira had bonded to him. He explained that separation could be dangerous for her health. Sareth made a dismissive gesture. He said the child was confused by trauma. He said her instincts had misfired because of stress. He said proper Valari care would correct these mistakes. He signaled to 2 officials who approached. Mira with outstretched hands. Mira screamed. It was not a human scream, but something higher and sharper, a sound that echoed through the docking bay and made everyone wince. She pressed herself against Nathan's leg and spoke rapidly in Valari. The officials stopped. Their faces showed shock. Sareth demanded to know what the child had said. The translator who had traveled with the survivors stepped forward. His voice was quiet but clear. He said that Mira had declared Nathan her stepfather in formal Valari tradition. She had invoked the sacred bond of parental recognition. To take her by force would be to violate one of the deepest laws of Valari culture. Sareth's expression darkened. He said that a human could not be a stepfather. The concept was biologically impossible. Dr. Hendricks produced a datapad containing his research findings. He explained the chemical analysis he had conducted. He showed the comparison between Nathan's pheromone signature and typical Valari paternal markers. He demonstrated that the match was real, Sareth examined the data with growing frustration. He said that even if the biology was accurate, the cultural implications were unacceptable. He said humans did not understand Valari developmental needs. He said Myra would grow up isolated from her heritage, disconnected from her people. Nathan listened to these arguments and felt doubt creeping into his heart. Maybe Sareth was right. Maybe he was being selfish. Maybe Myra would be better off with her own kind. He loosened his grip on Myra's hand. Myra felt the change immediately. She looked up at him with those enormous silver eyes, and Nathan saw something in them that broke his heart. She thought he was giving up on her. She thought she was going to lose another father. Her antennae went pale. Her skin color shifted from sky blue to a sickly gray. She swayed on her feet. Dr. Hendricks rushed forward with his medical scanner. He announced that Myra's vital signs were crashing. Her heart rate was dropping. Her neural activity was becoming erratic. She was entering the early stages of emotional shutdown. Everyone in the docking bay went still. Sareth demanded to know what was happening. Dr. Hendricks explained in urgent tones. He said that Valari children who lost their parental bonds could die from grief. The condition was called fading. It was the reason Valari adoption laws were so strict and so carefully managed. A child's bond to a parent was not just emotional but biological. Mira was fading because she believed Nathan was abandoning her. Nathan dropped to his knees and pulled Myra into his arms. He held her tight against his chest. He told her he was sorry. He told her he was not leaving. He told her he would never leave. Myra's antennae pressed against his neck. She breathed in his scent desperately, like a drowning person gasping for air. Slowly, her color began to return. Her vital signs stabilized. The medical scanner showed her brain activity, settling into normal patterns. The docking bay remained silent for a long moment. Captain Morrison stepped forward. Her voice was calm but firm. She announced that she was invoking Article 7 of the Galactic Humanitarian Code. This article allowed emergency guardianship claims when a child's life was at immediate risk. She declared that Nathan Cole was Myra's emergency guardian until a proper tribunal could be arranged. Any attempt to separate them would be considered a threat to the child's life and would be treated accordingly. Sarath's face was rigid with anger. He asked if the human captain understood what she was doing. He said she was inserting herself into Valari internal affairs. He said there would be consequences. Captain Morrison met his gaze without flinching. She said she understood perfectly. She said she would rather face political consequences than let a child die for the sake of bureaucratic convenience. Sareth turned to look at Nathan and Myra. The human medic was still kneeling on the floor, holding the small blue girl against his chest. Myra's face was pressed into his shoulder. Her antennae were slowly regaining their normal color. Sareth said this was not over. He said there would be a formal hearing. He said the council would decide whether a human was fit to raise a Valari child. Then he turned and walked away, his officials following behind him. Captain Morrison helped Nathan to his feet. She asked if he was all right. Nathan looked down at Myra, who was still clinging to him. Her eyes were closed, but her grip was strong. He said he did not know if he was all right. He said he was scared. He said he did not know how to be what Myra needed. The captain put a hand on his shoulder. She told him that every parent feels that way. She told him that love and fear often walk together. She told him that the only thing that mattered was whether he would stay. Nathan thought about that question. He thought about the empty years after his daughter died. He thought about the way Myra's hand felt in his. He thought about the sound of her voice when she called him father. He said he would stay. He said he would fight for her. He said he would do whatever it took. Myra opened her eyes and looked up at him. She did not understand all the words, but she understood the tone. She understood the promise. She pressed 2 fingers to her antennae in the Valari gesture of love. Nathan pressed 2 fingers to his forehead and returned the gesture around them. The docking bay slowly returned to normal activity. Refugees were processed. Officials filled out forms. Ships came and went, but for Nathan and Mira, the world had narrowed to just the 2 of them, standing together against everything that wanted to tear them apart. The battle was not over. The tribunal was still coming. But for this moment, they had won. And sometimes that was enough. The journey to the nearest Valari refugee station would take 3 weeks. Nathan had assumed that Mira would gradually become comfortable with other people during that time. He had assumed she would find a Valari adult to bond with instead. He had assumed wrong about everything. On the first night, Nathan showed Mira to the small quarters that had been prepared for the child survivors. There were beds and toys and Valari caregivers to watch over them. Mira looked at the room, then looked at Nathan and shook her head. She would not go inside. Nathan tried to explain that he was just a medic. He had duties on the ship. He could not watch her all the time. Mira listened to his words and then sat down in the hallway outside his personal quarters. She pulled her knees to her chest and waited. Nathan did not know what else to do. He brought her a blanket and a pillow and let her sleep in the hallway. The next morning, she was still there. Captain Morrison called Nathan to her office on the 3rd day. She told him that the situation was becoming a problem. Human-Valari relations were fragile after the war that had ended 5 years ago. If word got out that a human man had an alien child following him everywhere, it could be misunderstood. There could be accusations. Nathan said he understood. He said he had tried to get Myra to stay with the other survivors. He said she would not listen. The captain told him to try harder. She was not unsympathetic, but she had responsibilities to consider. Nathan returned to his quarters and found Myra sitting outside his door as usual. He knelt down and tried to explain the situation to her. He used simple words and spoke slowly. He told her that she needed to stay with her own people. He told her that humans and Valari were different. He told her that he was not the right person to take care of her. Myra listened to everything he said. Then she spoke in her broken common tongue. She said that different did not matter. She said that her father had taught her that the universe was too big for walls between species. She said that Nathan smelled like home, and she would not leave home again. Nathan did not know how to argue with that. The ship's xenobiologist was a man named Paul Hendricks. He was fascinated by Myra's attachment to Nathan and asked permission to run some tests. Nathan agreed, hoping that science might provide an answer to this strange situation. Dr. Hendricks spent 2 days analyzing chemical samples from both Nathan and the Valari survivors. When he finished, he called Nathan and Captain Morrison to his laboratory. He explained that Valari form bonds through complex chemical signatures. Each individual Valari had a unique scent profile made up of hundreds of different compounds. Parents and children shared certain markers, which was how family bonds were recognized and maintained. Dr. Hendricks said that Nathan's pheromone signature contained chemical markers that were nearly identical to those found in Valari paternal figures. This was extremely rare. Human and Valari biology were vastly different, and such a match should have been almost impossible, but not completely impossible. The doctor theorized that Myra's father must have had an unusual genetic variation in his scent profile. By pure random chance, Nathan's body chemistry happened to mirror that variation closely enough to trigger Myra's bonding instincts. Captain Morrison asked what this meant in practical terms. Dr. Hendricks looked uncomfortable. He said it meant that Myra's brain had already accepted Nathan as a parental figure. Neural pathways were forming around his presence. If they were separated now, she would likely enter a state of emotional decline that could become fatal. Nathan felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. He asked if there was any way to reverse the bond. The doctor shook his head. He said that Valari bonding was permanent once fully formed. There was no medical procedure to undo it. There was no therapy that could replace a parental bond with something else. Nathan returned to his quarters in a daze. Mira was waiting for him. She looked up with hope and fear mixed together in her silver eyes. Nathan sat down next to her in the hallway. He did not speak for a long time. He thought about his daughter who had died before she could grow up. He thought about the years he had spent feeling empty. He thought about how the universe worked in strange and unpredictable ways. Finally, he asked Myra if she wanted to learn some human words. Myra's antennae perked up. She nodded eagerly. Nathan spent the next 2 hours teaching her simple phrases. Hello, goodbye, thank you, please. My name is Mira. She repeated each word carefully, her accent thick but her determination clear. Then Myra taught Nathan some Valari gestures. A touch on the forehead meant respect. A hand on the chest meant trust. 2 fingers pressed to the antennae meant love. Nathan practiced each gesture while Myra watched and corrected him. By the end of that first lesson, something had shifted between them. Nathan still did not know what the future held. He still did not know if he was capable of being a father again. But he knew that this small blue girl needed him, and he could not turn away from that. Over the following days, they developed a routine. Mira would follow Nathan during his shifts in the medical bay. She watched him treat patients and handed him supplies when he asked. She was quiet and careful and never got in the way. The other medics stopped questioning her presence. At night, Nathan moved Mira into his quarters instead of leaving her in the hallway. He set up a small bed in the corner. Mira fell asleep faster when she could smell him nearby. She had fewer nightmares. Nathan learned more about Valari culture from the adult survivors on the ship. He learned about their food preferences and their sleeping cycles and their spiritual beliefs. He learned that Valari children needed physical contact to feel secure, so he started letting Mira hold his hand even when it was not necessary. Myra learned more about humans. She was fascinated by human music and spent hours listening to Nathan's collection of old songs. She liked the ones with slow melodies and soft voices. She said they sounded like the wind through the crystal caves of her homeworld. 2 weeks into the journey, something happened that surprised everyone. Mira was having a nightmare. She was crying out in Valari, calling for her mother and father. Nathan woke up and went to her bed. He did not know what to do, so he did what he would have done for his own daughter. He picked Mira up and held her. Mira's antennae brushed against his neck. She breathed in his scent and slowly calmed down. Then, half asleep, she spoke in common tongue. She called him father. Nathan froze. He waited to feel wrong about it, waited for guilt or discomfort or resistance. But all he felt was a warm ache in his chest where the emptiness used to be. He carried Mira back to his own bed and let her sleep beside him. Her small blue hand gripped his shirt. Her antennae twitched gently as she dreamed of something peaceful. Nathan lay awake for a long time. He thought about what it meant to be a father. He thought about whether blood and species mattered more than love and choice. He thought about how grief could transform into something new if you let it. By the time the sun rose over the artificial horizon of the ship's viewing deck, Nathan had made his decision. He did not know how it would work. He did not know what challenges waited ahead, but he knew that he would not abandon Mira. Not now. Not ever. She had chosen him, and now he was choosing her back. The smoke still rose from the ruins when the human ships arrived. Nathan Cole stood at the loading ramp of the horizon's edge and looked out at what remained of the Valari colony. Buildings that once stood tall were now nothing but broken stones and twisted metal. The raiders had come 3 days ago, and they had left nothing behind but destruction and silence. Nathan was a medic. He had seen terrible things in his 12 years of service, but this was different. The Valari were a peaceful species. They had no weapons, no armies, no history of war. They were scholars and artists and farmers. They had done nothing to deserve this. Captain Linda Morrison's voice came through his earpiece. She told the medical teams to spread out and search for survivors. She said the scanners were picking up faint life signs in the eastern sector. Nathan grabbed his medical kit and started walking toward the rubble. The air smelled like ash and something sweet that Nathan could not identify. He later learned it was the scent of Valari blood. It stayed in his memory for years afterward. He searched through collapsed homes for 2 hours. He found bodies, but no survivors. The other teams reported the same. The raiders had been thorough in their cruelty. Nathan was about to give up on his current sector when his scanner beeped. There was a life sign beneath a fallen wall. Faint but steady. Nathan called for help and began digging through the debris. His hands bled from the sharp edges of broken stone, but he did not stop. After 20 minutes, he cleared enough space to see inside. There was a small chamber beneath the rubble, a space where 2 walls had fallen against each other and created a pocket of safety. Inside, that pocket was a child. She was Valari, maybe 8 years old in human terms. Her skin was pale blue, the color of a winter sky just before sunset. Her eyes were large and silver, like pools of liquid metal. On her forehead, 2 delicate antennae rose from her hairline. They were trembling. The girl was clutching a torn piece of fabric against her chest. It was stained with the sweet-smelling blood. Nathan understood without asking that the fabric had belonged to someone she loved. He spoke softly. He told her his name was Nathan. He told her he was here to help. He asked if she could move. The girl did not respond. She stared at him with those enormous silver eyes, and her antennae twitched rapidly back and forth. Nathan had worked with Valari refugees before. He knew that their antennae were sensory organs used for detecting chemical signals in the air. The Valari experienced the world through scent in ways humans could barely understand. Nathan extended his hand slowly. He told her it was safe. He told her the bad people were gone. He promised he would not hurt her. The girl's antennae suddenly went still. Her eyes widened. She whispered something in Valari that Nathan did not understand. Then she spoke again in broken common tongue, the shared language of the galaxy. She said, "You smell like my father." Nathan did not know how to respond to that. He told her he was sorry, but he was not her father. He was just a medic from the human ship. The girl shook her head. She said she knew he was not her father. Her father was dead. She had watched him die. But Nathan smelled like him. Nathan smelled like safety. Before Nathan could react, the girl crawled out of her hiding space and grabbed his arm with both hands. Her grip was surprisingly strong. She pressed her face against his sleeve and breathed deeply. Her antennae brushed against his skin, and she made a sound that Nathan would later learn was the Valari equivalent of crying. Nathan did not know what to do. He looked around for help, but he was alone. He awkwardly put his other hand on the girl's back and told her it would be okay. He did not know if that was true, but it was all he could think to say. 2 other medics arrived a few minutes later. They were surprised to find Nathan kneeling in the rubble with a Valari child attached to his arm. One of them, a woman named Grace Park, asked what was happening. Nathan said he found a survivor. He said her name was unknown and she would not let go of him. Grace tried to approach the girl, but the child pressed herself closer to Nathan and made a frightened sound. Her antennae flattened against her head in a display of fear. Grace stepped back and said they should just bring her to the ship as she was. They walked back to the horizon's edge together. The girl held Nathan's hand the entire way. She stumbled sometimes because she was weak from days without food or water, but she never released her grip. When they reached the ship, she looked up at the massive vessel with wonder in her silver eyes. She had probably never seen a human ship before. The medical bay was busy with other survivors. There were only 17 in total from a colony of 3,000. Nathan found a quiet corner and helped the girl onto an examination bed. A Valari translator was brought to speak with her. Her name was Myra. She was 7 years old. Her mother had died in the first attack. Her father had hidden her in the collapsed walls and told her to stay quiet no matter what she heard. Then he had gone to find her brother. He never came back. The translator asked Myra why she was holding on to the human medic. Myra's answer made everyone in the room go silent. She said Nathan smelled exactly like her father. She said his chemical signature was the same. She said her bonding instincts had activated and she could not let go even if she wanted to. She asked if that made her broken. The translator, an elderly Valari male, looked at Nathan with an expression that was hard to read. He explained that Valari children formed permanent emotional bonds through scent recognition. When a child's parents died, they could sometimes bond to a surrogate if the chemical signature was close enough. But he had never heard of a Valari child bonding to a human. The biology was too different. It should have been impossible. And yet here was Myra, clutching Nathan's hand like he was the only solid thing in a universe that had broken apart around her dog captain. Morrison arrived and asked for a report. Nathan told her everything. The captain looked at Myra, then at Nathan, then back at Myra. She asked what they were supposed to do with this situation. Nathan said he did not know. He said he was just a medic. He said he was not qualified to be anyone's father. Myra looked up at him when he said that. Her silver eyes were filled with a desperate hope that made Nathan's chest hurt. She did not understand all the words, but she understood the tone. She was afraid he would send her away. Nathan looked at this small blue girl who had lost everything, and he thought about his own daughter who had died 6 years ago from a sickness no doctor could cure. He thought about the empty place in his heart that had never healed. He told the captain that Myra could stay with him for now, just until they figured out what to do. Just until they reached the refugee station. Myra did not understand the words, but she understood the meaning. She pressed her face against Nathan's arm again and breathed in his scent. Her antennae slowly stopped trembling. For the first time in days, she felt something close to safe. Nathan did not know it yet, but his life had just changed forever. The small alien girl with silver eyes had chosen him, and in the vast and mysterious way of the universe, that choice would become the most important thing that ever happened to either of them.